Hello, editors. Welcome back to the second tutorial in this cinematic editing series. In the last video, we covered cutting, syncing, transitions, and setting up your workspace inside of After Effects for a smooth workflow. Today, we're going to take things a step further by exploring color grading and basic effects to give your footage a cinematic yet professional look. Whether you're just working on a short film or YouTube content, or you're just experimenting for fun, these techniques will help your video stand out. So, without further ado, let's get started. Color grading is one of the most powerful ways to affect the mood and a feel of a video. Even small adjustments can completely change how your footage looks. Think about your favorite movies. Often, what makes them visually memorable is not just the scene, but how the colors are balanced and stylized. Today, I'll show you how to make a subtle yet impactful change using After Effects. We'll focus on exposure, contrast, vibrance, saturation, and tinting, which are all beginner-friendly tools that do not require complicated setups. First of all, we need to import our clip. We can do that by pressing Ctrl-I or Command-I, depending on which OS you use. Now, once we've imported our clips, we can drag it onto our timeline and let me zoom it in. Now, an important thing to remember is that usually it does not require that we match our clip with the composition resolution. You can have a resolution such as 1300 times 1000 for a clip which is 1920 times 1080. Now, many people would assume this as inaccurate because you want the full resolution. But sometimes for a cinematic look, it's better to have a smaller composition. First adjustment will be exposure. To get the effect exposure, you can go into effects and presets over here and type in exposure. Now, you can drag it on top of your clip. Exposure controls how light or dark your overall imagery is, while the offset and the gamma correction allow you to fine-tune shadows and highlights. Let's start by slightly increasing the exposure to bring out the details inside the picture. You'll notice the shadows lifting, making the image more balanced. Avoid pushing it too high, or you risk washing out the highlights. Subtle changes almost always look the most professional. So let me set this to a proper amount around 0.59. So this highlights the whites of the scene and reduces the contrast of the black. Now, speaking of contrast, let's adjust the contrast of this. So you can go to the same effects and presets panel and search contrast. Now, usually inside of After Effects, there's only one option, which is known as brightness and contrast. Now, we don't need to worry about the brightness part. We can just talk about the contrast. Contrast basically makes the darks darker while the whites whiter. The more you increase it, the more highlighted the whites become. One thing to remember is that too much contrast such as this reduces the details, and too less contrast also reduces the depth inside the image. So I usually go for something around 20 or 25. This is the perfect amount to bring out the whites and the blacks. Now, we need a little bit of color in our video too. So the best way to do that is search up saturation inside the same effects and presets panel. So there's the same thing, hue and saturation. Now, there are two ways you can do this, right? You can either use this slider, which I would not recommend because for something like saturation, we require precise measurements. The next option is using this bar. So I would take something like 10 or actually 40 because this scene does not have that much saturation. Now, saturation makes the imagery feel more alive, and the key is to change it subtly because our goal is to make it look cinematic, not cartoonish. And one more thing, if you're looking for a really good color correction, One thing you can do is you can add tint. So you can just search up tint. Inside the color corrections panel, there'll be something known as tint. Tint basically tints the overall image of your video. So if I wanted the video to be purely red for, say, a cinematic scene which requires pure red, I can just select the map white to amount to be red. And the map black to, you can also select as red, which will just give you a terrible output. And you can also do this, but then I would not recommend really using tint unless you have a proper reason to. And the last effect, which is not the least, is sharpen. Sharpen basically highlights all the details we've done so far. So you can click sharpen, drag it onto your video, and I would usually keep it at a solid 35 to 36. So right now, if I increase my view quality, you can see how it's really changed the view quality a lot, right? Now that we've edited a video to look good and pleasing to the eyes and cinematic, a few tips and the best practices that we have is to always make small incremental changes because subtlety is key, and reference real films or tutorials such as mine to understand what cinematic color looks like. Check your video on multiple screens if possible because colors can look different on different monitors based on what type of monitors. OLED makes the blacks highlighted, LCD makes all colors even. And the best practice that I've learned is to save your composition regularly. After Effects can crash if your project is heavy, especially on lower end laptops such as mine. Remember that lighting in your original footage matters. Color grading can enhance, but it cannot fix poorly lit videos. To summarize what I've covered today, we've imported our footage and set up the composition. We've adjusted the exposure to balance shadows and highlights, fine-tuned the contrast to make the images pop, used vibrance and saturation to bring life to the colors, and optionally applied tint and mid-tone adjustments for cinematic mood. And we've sharpened the videos to highlight the overall changes.